current economic status. Good evening and welcome to Botswana Tonight.
Thank you so much, Economist, for having me.
I think the conversation around a slump in diamond sales, I think it's tired by now. The conversation around the economic diversification started way back in 2000. We're still having a conversation around it now. But where we find ourselves is that inflation is up, I'm told. We find that people are out of jobs. We find that families are struggling. Organizations equally are struggling. Government itself is struggling. And the question is, we know the problems. What do we do?
I think that's a great point that you gave out to say that diversification has started, the conversation started years ago. But the true strategy towards diversification literally started around 2012 to 2014. And we could see the attempts towards diversification due to the 2008 diamond slump as well. And then we saw the recent attempt towards diversification again recently after the COVID slump as well. But again, I've always said that we need to look at the conditions that we were in as a country to try to move towards diversification then. So diversification was drawn and was supported by the recovery in diamonds, right, due to the crisis that happened. And the recovery in 2012 was due to the increase in disposable income for the two major markets, which is China and India. And then 2021, 22 recovery was due to a backlog of weddings and just the whole bridal space there. So now our recovery question is, this particular slump is not because of global or crisis, it's more of an isolated conversation. So what would drive our particular diversification attempts in this particular space, right? And obviously the cry is, let's diversify, let's move into manufacturing, let's move into all this agro-business stuff. Question is, how do we move in? Which areas are we going to move into manufacturing that particular space? I mean, that's what the question is at. And I think we need to start off by looking at the economic outlook, for the next probably 2 years, because we need to look into it.
Are we looking at the economic outlook globally or we're just...
Sub-Saharan Africa,
okay.
Yeah, which is also implicated by the global, outlook. So as it stands, they will be, there's projected a slow growth within Sub-Saharan Africa, right? Which will slow down in 2025 by 0.4% from the anticipated 4% increase in that particular space. So now it drives to a question to say what slows that particular growth itself is global aggregated demand, which is due to the global uncertainty that is bestowed around the market itself, right? So what is the impact of such? The impact of such now drives to say that there is less investment, appetite for investment from global investors, less aggregated demand from, the consumers in those particular developed markets. So therefore, it percolates into the African market, with therefore now, as a continent, we are going to be having more of less revenue coming from these minerals. But again, if you think about it from our perspective as a country, what is happening to us as an isolated event is a blessing in disguise, because we are 2 years in advance than other economies in Africa to be able to plan quite prudently for what is about to happen in terms of like the financial needs of the continent.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose the question for me here is it possible for us to talk about what needs to happen? You've painted a nice context, a nice background to what is happening globally. Really, you've brought it closer to home by looking at sub-Saharan Africa. But I suppose, can we talk about staying afloat? Can we talk about something happening with our economy without talking about diamonds? Given, yes, they've been the driver of our economy, but it's certainly not the only mineral that we have. And beyond resources, the natural given resources, you've got human capital as well. Isn't there anything else here that we can talk about and say, as we look to the next 2 years, the next 3 years, perhaps these are the avenues where we need to be looking over and above or as opposed to diamonds?
All right. Okay. So again, due to this economic outlook, again, we were able to identify to say that prices in copper as well have gone down. So prices altogether, this is not demand, this is prices, right? Prices for commodities has gone down due to the decline in aggregate demand globally, right? Now, as in your conversation to say what do we need to do currently to stay afloat, I think we need to look at what we have as a country, first and foremost. You know, what we have a younger demography. Our median age is 24 years of age. What does that mean? Translates into more productivity, more efficiency, right? What else do we have? We have low inflation, albeit you did mention that it has increased, but it's within range. This is better than most economies in Africa that are outside the targeted range of inflation. So we are still attractive to the outside market. But one thing that we need to look into as a country is the multilateral conversations or agreements we have with most countries, right? Developed countries in this particular space, and what we need to look into that particular aspect. I'm going to give you a typical example. We have an agreement with, the USAID, PEPFAR, where we were able to see that we're developing vaccines and all the sorts. That allows us an opportunity to be able to tap into possibly the growth or the appetite for Africa within SADC. We can actually develop vaccines, through this particular multilateral agreement that we have with USAID to say, let's tap into this part. We've got the human capital, we've got the infrastructure currently, and there's a growing demand for agriculture in SADC, and there will be a growing demand in agriculture due to the decline in aggregated demand globally. So minerals for SADC countries, demand for them is about to decline, so they need to diversify as well. That's what I'm saying. For us, it's a blessing in disguise because it's happening 2 years before it's about to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talk about a younger demographic, the very same younger demographic where unemployment is rife amongst them. The very same demographic where we are told there's a skills mismatch.
Right.
So what do we do with this young demographic to leverage whatever it is that we can think of if they are unemployed and if we are told, well, they don't have the right skills?
Right, skills to what? That would be the question. So if we're saying the right skills, again, like I said before, we're in an economy where it's developed to support this major economic activity, which is diamond mining. So a shift away from that, maybe we may look into it and try to leverage what we have existing skills that we have to see leveraging towards diversifying towards industry that we already do have the resources in place. So the objective of a government in this particular space is to mobilize resources towards industries that they would know, that we would say these are the low-hanging fruits or these are. So we need to be able to position ourselves and leverage towards that. Like I said, the agreement with USAID in that particular space, we can leverage.
You mentioned the vaccines, that we can actually go into the production of vaccines.
Right.
But beyond that, you talk about perhaps identify industries in the short term that we can sort of drive towards or push towards. But what are those industries? And I'm asking you this, looking at the all conversation we've had for many years that, well, industry wants something else, universities are chanting something else. So what industry, and that we have failed to diversify for so long. So when we talk about industries that we can identify beyond vaccine production, what else is there that we can tap into?
Okay, I want to sound very politically correct, right? And I'll say that for a reason. Is because there is no one industry that could, go beyond and fill in the gap that has been created by 85% worth of exports that were by diamonds that are not selling in that particular space. But we need to look at it from this particular perspective. What do we have as a country currently? It's a short-term problem that we're facing. What do we have currently? And understand, this decline in mineral revenue across the continent that projected to happen is going to increase funding needs And don't forget that the same funding needs that there's also another gap, which is the official developing assistance that's coming from the USA, which has been cut. EU as well is reducing that particular funding as well, due to the fact that they're also anticipating more or less a shock coming in. And hopefully Russia and Ukraine would come to a ceasefire, because if they don't, they will experience another energy crisis, which will then go to that particular space. So low-hanging fruit again, one would say agro-processing. Why? We already have bilateral agreements with EU, with China to export beef and all the sorts. We can literally just tap into the byproducts of beef, and jump into that particular space.
Mr. Boitshoko, I think we're just running around circles here, and perhaps it's because you said you choose to be politically correct. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. We've got BITC, whose main job is to bring investors into this country. We've got CESA, whose main mandate is to really ensure that those investors do come in, they do go to specific zones within the country with specific incentives. And what we've seen is there's portions and portions and portions of lands that have been allocated, but as a citizen, we have not seen anything come out of those. Are these entities that we should be looking at and saying, hey, you've had so many years operating, what is it that's there that we can do? Do we have those type of conversations? We've just had a new sponsorship, cycling sponsorship for 2025-26, over 3 million in this particular cycle. 12,000 people, over 12,000 people sponsored. In the main, we're saying go to TVET. We're talking plumbers, we're talking bricklayers, we're talking electricians, and the like. Whereas on the other side, we're told, but we encourage you to do robotics, and everything along those lines. The World Economic Forum also has got its own stats about future jobs. And we're talking about what do we do to stay afloat, what do we do to create employment, what do we do so that people have safety nets. Given where we are as a country, what can we do? What do we have? What sort of conversations should we be happening with all of these things to ensure that there's a hope?
Like I said, you have to go forth and look at what you have. You see the futuristic jobs that are coming through, they're coming from developed countries. That's mistake number one, which we may make as a country, to simply say, let's dive into that particular conversation. It's why we're here. It's because we're following a template which doesn't really exist for our economic makeup, right? So again, we need to be in a position where we are driving the right resources towards the right industries in the particular space. If we try to pivot and we don't have the right resources to pivot, we're most likely going to fail throughout our diversification attempts. And we have seen that happen in the past 2 attempts that have happened.
Okay.
Right.
We've got a sector that many people say is unexploited, soda ash. We are told the value chain is humongous, and probably that's a sector we need to look into. We've got critical minerals in this country. I'm just trying to find out, because I know for a fact that you are in some of these conversations. Where is the light? Is there light at the end of the tunnel?
There is light at the end of the tunnel, right?
What needs to happen?
What needs to happen is we need to get ready, and we are getting ready.
What does that mean?
What it simply means is we have a very fair, if you may look at it, quote unquote, fair advantage over other economies, because this is happening to us 2 years in advance, right? So again, soda ash, let me speak on the soda ash aspect. Let's not jump into industries that still will lead us back to this particular conversation. We need to create industries that would guarantee domestic aggregate demand.
What industries? I keep asking, what industries are those?
I did talk about the vaccine.
Beyond the vaccine, it can't.
I did talk about.
It can't just be vaccine. What industries?
I talked about agro-processing as well. I talked about
We've
those.
been talking about the tannery, which is not functioning in Robatse, for example.
Exactly, yeah.
They're trying to resuscitate it. So I get a sense that as a country, we are constantly stuck in talk mode, administrative to administrative, and it's not getting any better.
Right.
So what really needs to happen that can give us tangible results?
We need to be very prudent in our approach. We need to be very scientific and very surgical in our approach. We need to identify what we have as our assets, as our resources as a country. We can't even afford to jump off and say, let's go for manufacturing, and the next thing you know, we're manufacturing tables. For whom?
Isn't it about time we say it's going to toughen up for the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, yeah, we did mention that.
No. Like, really, to come out and say, Botswana, it is what it is. It's going to be tough for the next 2-3 years.
That's economic
Things
participation.
needs to change.
Yeah.
And then give us a plan of what that looks like. Because as a citizen, I don't see that plan. And we're looking to you to say, perhaps, maybe it's there, but you're not hearing it clearly. Let us clarify it for you. All we see is consultation. Where is the plan? Where is the strategy?
Right. So I'm not in those conversations, so I wouldn't be able to answer for those.
But you could assess based on what you did. Like I'm saying, perhaps some of this information is there. Perhaps we are failing to interpret it.
Right. Like I said, these consultations, these idea platforms that are being created, they are reasons that are particularly created. And I'm not in those meetings, in those conversations, in those rooms. But I would say let's typically understand and come up with matrix to measure the progress of these consultative meetings that we're having, right? Because we need to be able to guarantee to the FDI community outside and beat this uncertainty that the global market is facing. We need to at least guarantee domestic demand.
Why would I want to
do that? Then we're good.
As a foreign investor, why would I want to come to Botswana as opposed to any other country in sub-Saharan Africa, Angola, South Africa, Namibia?
High inflation beyond the target, number one. Number two, very disciplined fiscal policy. That's due to the fact that we're having a very low inflation or within maintaining inflation. Number three, a very strong financial sector. Imagine 9 banks and all together, aggregating towards more than 150% of the GDP locally. That shows you that we are very much a much more conducive place to invest in. But
thank you so much, Mr. Bame Boitshoko, an economist, speaking to us about the state of our economy and if there is anything actually that we could do to stay afloat and come out on the other side a much stronger and better economy. Benson Putero comes in at 7 o'clock with the news in Botswana.
Bagaetso, hurt people will hurt other people. So let's break the cycle of violence. Seek help, even if you were abused many years ago. Do not wait for a volcanic eruption of your emotions. Say no to gender-based violence. It starts with you.
How are you? Really, how are you? If this question irritates you, if it sparks a lump in your throat, please get help and talk about it and say no to any form of violence.
Nearly 1 in 4 females and 1 in 7 males aged 18 and 24 who have experienced childhood sexual violence have had their first incident happen at 13 or before 30. This could be your story. It could be your husband's story, your children's story, your mother's, even your father's. So open your eyes, open your ears, use your voice. Say no to gender-based violence. #no excuse.
Gender-based violence is an injustice that silences potential and destroys lives. It is not just a personal issue, it's a societal crisis. We must stand together and break the cycle, speak out and support those who suffer. By raising our voices, we create a safer, more equal world for all. Change starts with each one of us. Let's stand together and stop the violence today. #enough is enough.
Wetso madume phirimaneng ya tsatsi la bobedi kgaso ke popota ya dikgang tsa nako ya bosupa ke bidiwa Benson Putego makoro di tibulegela ka ditlhogo. Ditulaganyo di tsweletse go fa lekalana la Botswana Public Health Institute ditata tsa go ikemela ka esi. Mafatshe a Botswana le India itlama go tiisa ditirisano ka go amogana dikitso le konkuru ka tsamaiso e lolameng ya palamente.
Ha bakatisi ba bašwa ba ditlhopha tsa netball tsa setšhaba ba sologetsa go isa motshameko o kwa mankaleng-kaleng.
Kgaitsedi yake Liza Osekeng o tsuo go fatsa metshameko. Kgaitsedi yake Patricia Chobokwane ena o tolokolola ka puo ya diatla. A re tsene. Mothusa Tautona Rendaba Nkosinathi Gaolate yo gape le ntona wa tsa madi o tla tsena Phutego ya bofera bongwe e itebagantseng le ditlhabololo mo kgaolong ya Afrika e le Phutego jalo ya Tokyo International Conference on African Development. Phutego e rulagantsweng ke lefatshe la Japane le kalana la ditlhabololo la lekgotla la ditšhaba la UNDP le banka ya mafatshe gareng ga bana le seabe ba bangwe e fa mafatshe a Afrika sebaka sa go buisana ka fa ikaelelang go tlhabolola kgaolo eno ka go nonotsa tirisano le gone go gwebisana. Phutego ya monongwaga e tla tshwarwa mo setlhogong se se reng go tshwaraganela go